Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we'll Masech the Zevachim daf Nun Gimel. We are going to begin on the bottom of Nun Beis and Beis by the Mishnah. Chatos Asibor v'Hayochid. So we were learning before when it comes to the dinim of the Mizbeach HaPanimi, and now we're learning about that which is brought on the Mizbeach HaChitzon, on the outer Mizbeach. So sometimes you can have a Chatos Atzibor, and it also can be a Chatas Yochid. So, Elohein Chatas Atzibor. These are examples that we do need to mention about the Chatas Tzibor. Rashi says, Sha'arya Panemius, Par Edo, Syria, Bonas Kachavim, Kvar Nishnu. We already learned about those. So we're going to talk about the Chatas Atzibor, the Seiri Roshi Chadashim. That on Rosh Chodesh we bring a Sa'ir, we bring a he-goat. The Shel Moadis, as well as during the Moadim, we also do the same thing, and they're brought on the Mizbeach HaChitzon, as Rashi says. So the din is that Shchitas Musafim, just like we saw in the beginning of this parak, when it comes to the Shchita, it has to be in the north. Also, it also has to be in the north. The catching, Rashi says, any chatas has to be in the north, so it doesn't make any difference if it's a chatas hatzibor or a chatas yochid. Okay, and then it says v'damatayin arba matanas al arba kranais. When it comes to a chatas, we know that it's necessary to put 4 blood applications on each of the 4 corners of the Mizbeach HaChitzon. Now, we did say before that when it comes to the Mizbeach HaChitzon in Perek Beis Shammai, that technically if you only did 1, it's acceptable, but Me'ikra Din for the Chatas is supposed to do 4 blood applications. Nun Gimel with Aleph. Oil B'Kevesh. So what happen? You go up the ramp. So imagine that you have the ramp, you have on your side, you have the west, which would bring you into the Ulam, the Kodesh, and the Kodesh Kodashim. So here we are, you're on the east, okay? So if this is west, so then the Mizbeach that you would be starting off is Upanaloi Savivol Kren Draimus Mizrachis. So it's the east. So again, the Kodesh Kodashim is this way. So you start off in the corner, which is the southeastern corner, and you basically are going to go like to your right, if you will, Mizrachas Svinus, and then you continue to go like up, if you will, toward the east, toward the Safon, in the direction of where all the Shchitas take place. And then you would do a second blood application there. Mizrachas Svinus, Svinus Maravis, Maravis Droimus. And then you end up on the southwestern part. Now the west part of the Mizbeach is pretty close to, again, the Ulam room. So then to the Kodesh. So you go down the ramp, and now you're on this western side. Shiri Hadam Hayeshavach Yisayid Droimus. So it makes sense, since you're already in the south, the southwest, so therefore the blood application should be on the Yesod, which is on the south side. Like all Kadshei Kadashim, it has to be eaten within the Kilayim, within the actual Mechitzos there. You can't eat it like outside anywhere in L'chol Ha'ir, like by Kadashim Kalim. Well, Zichri Kahuna. Now, when it comes to eating Kadshei Kadashim, only a male Kohen can eat it. However, he has the day, and then that night until midnight. He doesn't have the whole night. Okay, and the question is that really Me'ikr Hadin? So, Rashi points out the very first Mishnah in Shas. Siyag asu chachamim l'toira. Actually, it's a fence. It shouldn't have to be they have to stop by midnight. It's only harchik adam me'averas kares. We don't want a person to leave it over, and then it'll be an Isser Nicer, And if you end up eating it and not burning it, so you're over kares. As it says in the first parak in Masechtas Brachos, Daf Beis Amud Aleph, the first Daf in Shas, first Mishnah, Kol Necham Yoyim Echad Mitzvasen, really is Ad She'amol Shachar, but we say only have until Chatzos. As a siyag. Of course, it's mentioned over there. I almost have to mention it. Even everyone knows this. Is brought because of Kriya Shema. That technically you have the whole night, according to Shittas Chachamim, to say the Kriya Shema. However, as a siyag, so therefore we say they only have until Chatzos. Okay. And the famous story of Rabbi Gamliel and his kids who came from a Mishnah, etc. Okay. So, let's see the Gemara. So, Heichi Ovid. Says Rashi, the matnas etzba b'keren. Exactly when you are doing the chatas and you're doing the blood application with your finger, how exactly does that take place? So, Rav Yochanan and Rabbi Lezer, Chadaimer noisin ama eluch va'ama eluch. One says, Rashi says, Kashu oimed etzel zavius, so mizbeach. Like you're at this corner, right? Noisin b'saich ama shel miktsoya le'ezurach shirtze. So if you're in the southeastern corner, so you don't have to put it mamish on that actual corner at that 90-degree angle. You can put it even with an amma up to the corner on either side is enough, and that would still be okay. The other one says no. You actually have to be cautious that you put it on the edge, like on the corner. Okay. Now, the Rebbe Lezer, Rabbi Shimon, according to him, he says he atzma enu nasis el begufa shel karen. He says that in itself is he atzma says right. You call atzma the ikar mitzvasa enu el hasham. He says that the ikar, the best way of doing it is on the actual horn itself, because it protrudes upwards. So they put it on the karen to kill mula pligi. In that situation, no one argues that you do not need the chuda for it to be on the corner, as Rashi says the karen siv va'amal alma brum alma hanaisin b'roisham mizbeach b'chol zavius zaz b'chol makam shuba kari karen. So if you put the blood not just on the lower than the karen, which protrudes upward, but below it, then that could be questionable. But if you put it on the karen itself, so it doesn't make any difference. It doesn't mamish have to be on the edge. However, keep legal the Rabbi Mar Savar Ama Ilach Va'ama Ilach Keneged Karen. Who? Mar Savar Keneged Chuda in Tfei Loi. So basically, according to one shita, that it's supposed to be put on the gufa shel karen, so then it's not a machlokas, because then no one's going to say it has to be on the corner. So long as it's on the karen. But if you put it below, so that's where the machlokas is. So meisvei. Chatas asibur b'yachid, ketzad. So how do we understand the blood applications of the chatas of a yachid or a tzibor? So, matan damin ha'yoila kevesh, you would be carrying this blood to the ramp, ufano soivev, and then you turn, uvalo ken deraimis mizrachis, right? And you go to the southeast, okay? Which is basically quoting our Mishnah. The toivel be'etzboi hayimanis, you dip your right finger, your right pointer finger, shibi min hadam shibi mizrach, you dip it into the dam, which is in the kli. V'chaymer b'goydlo milamawa uve'etzbo katana milamata. So basically, what you have is your thumb is up and your lower finger is down. Umachta v'yored keneged chuda shel karen, and you put it down, this blood application, toward the edge of the corner. Ad she machal kol adam shebe'etzma, until all the blood is off your finger. V'kol v'chein kol karen v'karen. You have to do this for each corner. So, mitzvah b'chuda. It just means it's a mitzvah to put it at the edge, So then, but if you don't, it's not an issue. TA3. So, according to Rabbi Elazar, Rav Shimon, B'chol Gufa Shel Karen, anywhere you place it on that Karen, which is Alma by Alma, is fine. According to Rabbi, Av Shenoisin Lo Matim in the Karen, you can put it below, but it's got to be above the Chut HaSikra. And when it comes to we're talking about a Chatas. An Oila goes below the Chut HaSikra, the Dam applications. But a Chatas goes above it. So it could be anywhere below it. And then l'chad man di'omer yochel osis alma ilach ve'elach. L'chad man di'omer l'matim in a Karen, below the Karen yochel osis rak keneged chuda. So if you put on the Karen, you can put on the Karen anywhere. The other sheet is that if it's below the Karen up until the Chut HaSikra, somewhere between the Chut HaSikra to the Karen, one sheet that says Alma Alma, the other sheet that says no, it's got to be on the edge. But on the Karen itself, you definitely do not need the edge. Okay, so again, at Liba, the Rabbi Elazar, Reb Shimon, so he says, he atzma einonasas el begufa shel Karen, which is anywhere, right? Anywhere on the Karen is good. Okay, all right. Let's possibly move on. Let's see if we have another question. No. Okay. All right. Let's move on. Actually, I think did I miss question 4? No. Okay. And question 5. Oh, okay, yeah. So this actually, for some reason, it's a straight mission in this one. Chatas HaChitzainis, we need 4 blood applications on the 4 corners. Eza Karen Hoyanaisin Matana Rishayna, Eza Matana Shnia. So it's interesting. You just have to remember the Mishnah. So Matana Rishayna Al Karen Doraimis Mizrachis, which Karen Doraimis Mizrachis, which is the first. It says over here Voloi Karen Doraimis Mizrachis, and then Mizrachis Fainis. Right? So this is question, this is a pashut straight from the Mishnah, it's question 5. Okay, let's keep moving. So, my Rabbi Elazar Rav Shimon, what exactly is this machlokas, this sanya? So we learn as follows. Damim he'el yoinim. So when it comes to the dam, which is supposed to put above the Chut HaSikra, namely like a chatas, nisdim Chut HaSikra l'mala, and it's supposed to again be put above the Chut HaSikra. Domim hatachtainim, for example, like a carbon oila. So nidnim Chut HaSikra l'mata. Dear Rabbi, that's what he says. Rabbi Elazar Rav Shimon Omer, b'mendim or memorim, that all we do is make a distinction between it just has to be above or below the Chut HaSikra, is only be'oilas ha'oif. When it comes to an oilas ha'oif, when it comes to a chatas behema, which we know a chatas behema again is also put above, he atzma inasas el al gufa shel Karen. Actually, it's supposed to be on the Karen itself, right? Not that it's just supposed to be put anywhere between it. No. When it comes to the chatas behema, it mamish must be on the Karen itself. Rabbi Avo, my time with the Rabbi. So why does, first of all, Rabbi say just as long as it's above it, doesn't matter if it's not on the Karen. Because the pasuk says in Yecheskel, it says the ha'arel arba amos u'mihariel l'mala hakronos arba. So what do we see from here? Arba amos hu dahavya. It's arba amos. So basically, it doesn't have to be mamish on the Karen. It can be anywhere above the Chut HaSikra. where there's the Kronos, Arba Makam Kronos Daled Havi. So it's actually 4. So El Ema Rishus Kronos Daled. Let's look at Rashi. Says Rashi, when do we say B'medavar Murim the Domim El Yoinim Ksherim L'Mala Minachut, that we said it's just as long as it's put above the Chut Sikra, that's only by an oilus oaf. That's where we're leaning. Oilus oaf is also put on top. An oilus behema is put below. And that we will learn later on that's the din by an oilus oaf. It goes on top, just like a chatas. Avol chatas behema, which also goes on top. Karen behedya. There it says the word Karen explicitly. Enu not. So again, it has to mamish be on the Karen itself. The word el is another word for mizbeach. Arba amos hu dahavi bitmia. V'chi ein gavoa or rachvay el arba amos. Its length or its width or height is that amount. So makan kronos arba claimer ha kronos taisin arba amos b'mizbeach. That the Kronos take up 4 amos. Why? Because the whole Karen Amma al Amma. It's not all together. They're all in the 4 corners, but each corner, the Karen constitutes an Amma by an Amma. And therefore, that's what it means that there's 4. Okay. El Ema Rishus Kronos Dal. Okay. Tanan Hasam. Chushel Sikra. So you have this line which goes around the center of the Mizbech HaChitzain. Hatar Nos Mechitza. The Torah specifically makes this separation. L'havdu bein damim elyonim and damim atachtainim. Again, make this distinction so you'll know where you're allowed to do the blood applications, depending on what carbon it is. So Shiri Hadam, so when it came to the Shiri Hadam, the Mishnah said, is poured logically in the south. Because that's really where you just got off the ramp after you did all these blood applications. Taraban. El Yisayid Mizbeach Ze Yisayid Deraimi. Ato Aimer Yisayid Deraimi, the south, and went away El Yisayid Maravi, maybe the west. So V'yilmad Sosim in a Mefarish. Amarti Yilmad Yiri Dasoy Min a Kavesh Liyitziyasum in a Heichel. After Yuridasim in a Kevesh is Besamachloi. So when it comes to doing the avodah inside in the Kodesh and you leave, so at that point you are now hitting the southern point because it's the closest place, and therefore that's where you did the blood application. So too, when you get off, that is where the closest place where you are, which is in the south. Tanya Rishmul Aimer Zevazei Yisayid Maravi. Actually, not in the south, but both are put in the west. Shimon ben Yochayim is Zevazei Yisayid Droimi. No, they're put in the south. So Bishalman Yirmi Yisayid Maravi, he says the west, Ksavar Yimud Sosim Meforish. Because, what does that mean? Because when it comes to from the Mizbeach HaPanimi, and you go out, so that is the that is in the west, because you were in the west and you're in the west. So when you leave, you're in the closest element to the west. So it makes sense that the blood application should be on the side which is the west, by the Panimi, and we'll say the same thing, even though maybe that's not the closest one. The southern place is the closest one by doing the rounds of Mizbeach HaChitzain, but nonetheless we compare over there to the west, so over to the west. Why does he say the south? So look in Rashi. Ve'ena mizbech lifnei Pesach klum el amid shel amad roimi inami b'tzafon hazarkoi v'havi chamish amoisim keneged Pesach. Okay. Anyway, so that's the machlokas, whether or not the shiuri hadam is spilled on the south or on the west. So my time, so El Madiyermi Yisai Deroimi my time, why in the south? So Rabbi Yosi Ksavar Haitan the Kulim Mizbeach B'Safin Koi. The entire Mizbeach is actually in the north. It's more north. So therefore, when they come off, so the Mizbeach is mamish again more in the north. So therefore, it's better that you should do it in the south, because right when you leave, when you get there, it's mamish going to be right there. Okay, so Lashon Achar Kuli Pesach B'Dorim Koi. Actually, maybe you can say that the whole Mizbech is actually not up in the north, but it's actually shifted down southern, which is like what a lot of the pictures demonstrate. Okay, Nun Gimel Mebez. Tana Rabbi Shmuel Kirebi Shimon ben Yochai Yamrim Zevazeh Yisad Moravi V'Simonich Mishchu Gavri L'Gavra. What does that mean? It says Rashi, Talmidi Rabbi Shmuel. When it comes to the students of Rabbi Shmuel Shehein Merubin, there's a lot of them. So Moshcho es Rav Shimon Leimer Kedivi Rabban. So he ended up going like his teacher. Okay, let's see. Maybe there's another question. Not there. Okay, let's keep moving. Says the next Mishnah. Ha'oila kachi kadashim. Of course, we know an oil is, of course, kachi kadashim, and therefore, just like everything else, shekitas masavot in the north, the kidam them kli sharis masavmain, v'dama ta'oin shtema tanashen arba. So an oil is different than a chatas. A chatas, you need to do the blood applications on each of the four corners separately, 4 of them. When it comes to an ola, you only do 2, which is 4. What does that mean? Because basically, what it means is that each corner you throw it at the corner, so this way the blood hits on both sides. So therefore, even though you're doing only 2 blood applications, 1 on this corner, and then you go around and 1 on the other corner, but you're actually you're like killing 2 birds with 1 stone, if you will. But that's the din of an oil. So when it comes to an oil, you only do 2 blood applications, which is 4. As opposed to a chatas, you have to do 4. So when it comes to an oila, we skin the animal because the hides go to the kohen, because we're going to burn the rest. We cut it into sacrificial parts, and it's completely destroyed on the mizbech. Says the Gemara, oila my taima. So what's the whole reason of what we just said? Because Tani la kachi kadashim yishum deloik simba Hashem kachi kadashim. Says Rashi, Ma'adol tani gabi chatas v'ashamois taminami kachi kadashim. Why doesn't it mention it by the other ones? Yishum, says Rashi, deluk simba isra chashmin afil haki kachi kadashim he takul gvoya. Everything is going to Hashem. The enucha kachi kadashim kazeh. There's no other thing which is like it. If a kadashim kalam gafayu, my de'ozu minayu gavoya kachi kadashimhu. Okay. So let's keep on moving. V'dama ta'in shtei matanos. So heichi of it. So omerab nasin, omerab noisin v'chayz v'naisin. So again, what you do is you do it 1 blood application, as we explained, the v'chayz v'naisin, and then you do it again. Says Rashi, Heichi navid the nasim hashtayim shein arba. So noisin v'chayz v'naisin. Zayrik min hakli u'mizbeach baruach zu shel karen v'chein baruach hashniya shel karen. So again, you're hitting the corners and allowing the blood to go on both sides. V'chein l'karen shekenegdam al kasayin v'nimsa min hadam l'dad ruchais. Okay, so that's basically what that's all it means. Shmuel Omer matana achas kmin gama. It's like the letter L. That in Kamin Gama Nice. Tukitana. Yachli is Kanu Zrika Achas. You think you just have to do 1 Zrika, Talmud Leimer 7. So E Saviv Yachal Yaki Fenu Kechut. You think you actually have to surround the whole thing. Talmud Zarka, you just throw it. So Ahaketsan. Kamin Gama, it's like this individual v'chada toyin shtei matanos shein arba. So Shmuel Omer nemer kan saviv nemer lahon saviv. Malahon pisek v'arba matanos avkan pisuk v'arba matanos. So it tells us that you have to have 4 blood applications. Malahon arba matanos al arba kronos on all 4 corners. So avkan arba matanos al arba kronos. So martu ula tun yisoid. So he says that ula requires a yisoid. The kerem is rachas droimus lahoya la yisoid. When it comes to the southeast, you have a little bit of a diagram over here. The southeast does not have a yisoid, which in our Gemara, which would be the very bottom left corner. My time. So why is there no yisod over there by the southeast? So Omer Belezer lefi shlo hayisa bechelko shel tayrif. So what does that mean? It says Rashi, lo haya lo yisod. It'll come in mafarish hechidami. So my tam lo haya lo yisod. Why was there no yisod? So tayrif. Binyamin, when it comes to Binyamin, he's compared to a zev, like a wolf that rips things apart. Shemis Navi Yaakov alaba boiker yoichel ad belchasan yer yisma midibcha. The oyisar karen lo haya bechelka kamafarish v'asel. So basically, that's the explanation over here. So let's see the significance of this as to why there could not have been a yesod on that part. Okay. So Omer Blezel Vishal Hayy Bechelko Shel Tayrif was in the Chelk of Binyamin. The Omer of Shmuel but Rav Yitzchak Mizbeach Oicha Bechelko Shel Yehuda. It actually consumed Yehuda's Chelk. Omer Amma. Omer Rabbi Levi Bar Chama Amri Rabbi Chama Rabbi Chanina Ritzu Haysiyatza Bechelko Shel Yehuda. There was a small strip of land that went from the Chelk of Yehuda. When Nechnesses Bechelko Shel Binyamin, V'Haya Binyamin Atzadik Mitztar Alehem B'Chol Yom. He always was bothered by it. When Naitla to take it, Shnemar, as the pasuk says, the famous pasuk, that Chayfiv Alav Kol Hayom. Lafika Zacha Binyamin Matzadik Nasas Ushbezichin L'Kadosh Baruch Hu became like a guest, and therefore Shnemar being safe for Shachin, so that it was in the Chelek of Binyamin. Okay, let's stop there, but let's maybe see another couple questions. Question 6. Be'eza Karen lo haya bo yisoid. So we established that already. That is the southeastern, right? There is no yisod. Be'eza Karen haya nasa mitzoy hadam b'oilos ha'ov. I'm not sure we did that. So anyway, but that's question 6. So the oilus ha'ov is put on the top, but it's also in the Mizrachas Droimus. That's also in the southeast. Okay, so that's the Karen where we would do the mitzui for the oilus ha'ov, which is also in the southeast. Okay. No more questions there. Nope. TB. Question 7. I don't know what question 6 is. Ma hakavana karen d'roimus mizracha solo hayoy side. So ein mamish. Mamish ein lo yisod. Rakla inyan domim. Yish dover shaboylet l'kabel hadamim. And they shezeh bechelko shel Yehuda v'loy mishel sheva Binyamin. So that's, I think, what we're getting at over here. So that's Nun Gimel Amid Beis to Nun Daled Amid Aleph. Okay, let's see. Is there another question about that? Not really. Okay, Adkan.